Waffen Brothers, Vivas Unitas, Brothers in Arms, United Forces. The often evoked Brothers in Arms between Vienna and Berlin was in reality an alliance between two unequally matched brothers who had different war aims and even sometimes were rivals. Since being defeated by the Prussians in the Battle of Königgrätz in 1866, the Austrian elites had entirely lost their self-confidence. In Bismarck's plan for Germany as a great power, the Habsburg monarchy only had the role of a junior partner, and the Austrians had not quite been able to come back to terms with their loss of the hegemony of the German-speaking world. The rise of the unified Germany from 1871 onwards had always been viewed with a certain ambivalence in Vienna. On one hand, there was a secret admiration for Prussian militarism, and in many cases the right was used as a model for economic development. On the other hand, Austrian self-respect was eroded by having to admit to taking second place. This was also the case in domestic political problems, as the strengthening radical wing of the German nationalist movement in the Habsburg monarchy increasingly became oriented towards Berlin rather than Vienna. Germany was a young nation state that was still learning how to handle the newly acquired position as a political and economic great power, had little understanding or sympathy for the complex structure and the specific problems of the multinational Habsburg monarchy. The Prussians thought the Austro-Hungarian Empire was past its by sell date, a relic of a dynastic past of the politics of the bygone centuries. Austria stood for readiness, decadence, sloppiness, hearing, and inconsistency. This led to a number of misjudgments on both sides concerning the strengths and weaknesses of the respected other. While Vienna often overestimated their greater brother Germany's actual potential, Germany sometimes underestimated the strength of the old Habsburg monarchy. When in July 1914 that all signs point to a great war becoming imminent, it was clear that how divergent the ideas and the aims of the two allied partners were. Nor were there any concrete agreements regarding the war aims, and while the strategy of the Danube monarchy was focused on Serbia and the Balkans, Germany from the very beginning had its eye principally on the conflict with France. There was also astonishingly very little in the way of a military strategic cooperation between the two allies even on the eve of the war, and what cooperation they did engage in was more suggestive of rivalry rather than brothers in arms, or Bundeswaffen. The respective military staff took to operating in the strictest of secrecy and allowing each other little access as possible to their own strategic and logistical affairs. Only when the war actually began did it become necessary to play with open cards, as it would otherwise be impossible to coordinate a common strategy. When the Austrian General Staff announced that it would take up to 14 days for the army to get ready for war, it was because most of the soldiers of the primarily agricultural states of Austria-Hungary were forlorn for the harvest. The Danube monarchy was not clearly prepared for this war. This was also evident as the war progressed, when the Austrian army and the administrations of the Hinterland experienced massive problems in the field of supplies and reinforcements. After having enjoyed little success in the initial phase of the war, the Austrian army had become more dependent on the assistance from German forces. As a result, the summer of 1916 saw the supreme commander being taken over entirely by the Germans. Once Vienna had been compelled to give its agreements to a common high command, the Germans had to stay over the Austrian generals. Although in public there was a highly emotive emphasis on Nibelung loyalty between the two allies, off the records the Austrian Chief of General Staff Konrad von Hotzendorf referred to Germany as unseren heimlichen Feind, our secret enemy. And there you have it, the two brothers of the Germanic languages. Two different peoples, two different countries, two different empires, one single language. That's all they had in common. The Deutsches Land language, and even then, the Deutsches Land language was very different indeed for Austria and the Germans. So I would leave you there with those offensive East Central German accents. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and yeah, name drop Konrad von Hotzendorf and Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia is coming probably tomorrow, because it's Italy, France, Britain, and of course Russia with the Bolsheviks, which has two parts to it, and yes, the Great War, two parts to it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I will add more to the Czechoslovaks. Trust me, I'm not gonna copy all. I'm gonna add more. But until then, Vivas Unitas, Waffen Brothers. Brothers in arms, my brothers. The Ottomans are coming soon though, so we're going to be soldiers of God. We're going to be soldiers of God soon. Can't say the AA word yet, but soon, my Deutsches Land brothers. Learn something. Guten Nacht. Or Guten Nacht. Guten Day. Goodbye. Go away. Learn something.